My name is Holden Madagame, and I am I'm a transgender singer. I'm a tenor now. I used to be a mezzo soprano. I studied at the University of Michigan, and I got my bachelor's in vocal performance. I was also born in Michigan, and I've been living in Germany for the past 5 years or so. I lived for about 4 years in Berlin, and now I live in a small town called Görlitz.
Excellent. So, what has been the most challenging part of starting this career and being in transition, I guess?
I think the hardest part, honestly, was just being patient enough while my voice was changing. Because I actually had a lot of support from the people around me. There were a few people that were pretty vocal about saying that I was making a bad decision or whatever. But it was out of good intentions because they thought that I was making a bad career choice. I understand that. But most people were very, very supportive and wanted the best for me and wanted to support me in this process. But definitely the hardest part was waiting and having the motivation to keep practicing and keep learning repertoire, even when my range was very small or when my breath, there was so much breath in the voice or just all sorts of things. And finding new repertoire was also quite difficult. That was a huge jump because the kind of repertoire I do now is pretty different from what I did before. One specific thing was being able to sing lots of coloratura stuff, like Rossini stuff as a mezzo, and then not being able to do that anymore because I love that repertoire. So that was quite difficult.
Yeah. So that kind of brings me to my next question. Do you now, or did you suffer from like a voice dysphoria ever?
Oh, great
Or
question.
do you still? I mean,
Yeah, a great question. I never really suffered from voice dysphoria. I loved my mezzo soprano singing voice, and I was totally happy with my speaking voice. I had no problems with that, actually. That was not what made me dysphoric and what made me want to take testosterone. So I actually only started experiencing voice dysphoria once I started taking testosterone. And then I was like, oh, this feels so weird. Especially whenever I was like in a group of people and then I would speak and then this like loud, like male voice came out. I was like, oh, gross. So sometimes I still feel that way a little bit, but now I'm kind of used to it.
Yeah.
But I do have to. No, I don't. I have to, I guess, but I do. I'm much more careful when I'm in group settings because just like my voice projects a lot more, and yeah. Anyway,
So tell me if there's been anything surprising to you about working with colleagues or conductors or directors in Germany. As I assume an openly trans singer, they all know. Yeah. Okay.
very open about it. Sometimes people don't know just because like I don't know them very well, and
Right.
so and if they take one look at my website, then they know. But
Right.
or if they ask anybody, or not that most people wouldn't think to, but most people kind of know because word gets out, and I talk about it a lot, and so
Right.
people just know. I think the most surprising thing, though, is how little people care here. And in Germany, it's much more relaxed, even on like a very, very basic level. Just getting over the kinds of things people wore to auditions was a big surprise to me because people just kind of wear whatever they want. And in the States, it's just not like that. We have very specific things we wear.
Right.
Everybody's very, very clean looking, and the way that you talk to people in auditions is slightly different here. So again, people are accepting, but they're accepting because they don't care.
That's right. That's a whole different level of accepting. All right.
Exactly.
So you talked a little bit about when your voice was in transition just after you started testosterone. Was there a time frame that you'd care to share? I mean, I've read a little bit about it because I've read everything on your website, and I've been stalking you for a while now.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about your transition with testosterone. How difficult? How long? If you have any sense of that.
Yeah. Well, the first year was definitely the most difficult because the most changes happened to me in the first year.
Hmm.
And I was taking a relatively large dose, and I was taking injections. I didn't take any gels, and I took full doses. And so the changes happened pretty quickly. Um, and I
You did that
think
right off the bat. The full doses right off the bat.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I talked to my doctor about it, and he was like, you can take half doses. You can
Hmm.
also take gels, but it's much more expensive. So I was like, that's just not an option because I
Yeah.
was paying for it out of pocket. And so
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I could take the half doses, and then I thought about it, and I was like, um, I don't know. I didn't make a super lucid decision about it, but I was just like, just give me the full dose. It's fine. Like I'll figure it out, and I did,
Right.
so it's fine.
Yeah. That's great.
And I think it would have been hard either way. I don't think
Yeah.
it would have, and I, in some ways, I think I could have lost motivation at some point because it would have prolonged the process.
Right.
Um, and so I think it was fine, and I was still not back up and running, so to speak, but I was like within a year or a little over a year, I was singing stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, and
And you
so,
feel like at about a year, your voice stabilized, and it's pretty much been stable throughout since
well,
then.
I think after a year, I started to be able to sing tenor repertoire that now I definitely can sing.
Yeah.
But at the time, it definitely was not at a professional level. I was singing stuff, and I was singing in some random productions, and it was really good that I did that.
Right.
And uh, because I needed to keep performing and I needed to keep singing.
Right.
And the main thing was, like I said, motivation. Just like keeping that motivation to keep singing was kind of the trick. And I think really my voice has only stabilized in the past 6 months, if I'm honest. And I've
Okay.
been on testosterone, what, like almost 4 years now, I guess. Is that
Okay.
right? Yeah. So I wouldn't say it stabilized after the first year or even after the second year.
Yeah.
It just kept going. And at some point, like you stop having such large changes, which is great, and then it
Right.
starts to even out. And compared to, I don't know, compared to other singers who are not going through these types of changes, my voice is progressing a lot more quickly.
Right.
And stabilizing more quickly. So, and I pick up things more quickly, but it's still very slow.
Yeah.
And uh, I think right now, if I'm honest, now I feel the most stable that I have ever felt about my current voice, and now feel like I can do professional work
Great.
very confidently.
Great.
Yeah.
When you think about the technique that you were using as a mezzo, what has been the biggest challenge as a tenor to overcome?
Great question. I think the biggest thing is accessing the top because
I knew you were going to say that.
because as a mezzo it was so easy. It just happens. Like you just don't have to think about it as much. You're just like, I'm gonna sing a high note, and I mean, if it's lying up there for a while as a mezzo, like yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
Then there's plenty of pieces that are difficult. You don't want to sit up there the whole time. But like any of the like Rossini stuff, it's fun. You can just play with it, and it's easy, and you can just pop that stuff out. And same thing with like lower stuff. It's like when you're going down to like the lower break and like into chest voice, like it's fun. You don't have to think about it that much. But with tenor voice, like once you get up into the passaggio, it's such a whole other universe. And everything is up there. There's almost
There's no rest.
repertoire.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's just up there the whole time, and there's very little repertoire that stays in any sort of middle range.
Right.
So that's definitely been the most difficult, is just accessing the top, and also figuring out the technique things that weren't actually as stable as a mezzo soprano and that are now more obvious as a tenor.
Right.
And as a mezzo, I probably could have gotten away with it because the rest of my technique was really solid.
Right.
I would have figured it out eventually as a mezzo, I think.
Right.
As like, figuring all of this other stuff out as a tenor, like just like basic stuff, just like supporting correctly.
Yeah.
Like, it was like fine as a mezzo, but now it has to be there to get any of this stuff.
There's no getting by with now. It's
Exactly.
like on game. Okay. Do you feel a specific break? I don't know if you call it head voice now or falsetto, or if you make a distinction between those two productions. But
Yeah,
do you
definitely.
feel that type of break happen into the very top if you try to go beyond what's tenor possible?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely I do. I call it falsetto. I don't. I'm still trying to figure out the difference between like a male head voice and like a falsetto. I know there is a difference, and I'm barely figuring out the tenor stuff. So I'm
That's right.
so I'm just
You
kind of
don't
like,
have
okay.
to have all the answers. Yeah.
So I'm like, this is falsetto or something like
Is
falsetto.
there any advice that you would give to, let's start first with the teachers. What advice could you give teachers that may have trans students for the first time or haven't had many?
Um, well, I guess a couple of things. The first thing that pops into mind is to it, have start a conversation and have a conversation about this person singing before they started taking hormones, because that can have a huge influence as to how they approach their singing now and why they might be having specific issues, is because they keep hitting it. They hit something specific as they would have done, and they have that muscle memory, which is so strong, and and that can just help you reroute something if you know something about their voice before hormones. Also, I guess I mean this is more of like a emotional support thing, but just kind of helping your student stay patient and stay calm, and giving them things that keep them motivated and keep them happy and excited about singing, rather than pushing them into repertoire or pushing them to like, for example, they're just pushing high notes for a new tenor. It makes you want to curl up and do a ball. And yeah, so those two pieces of advice.
I think those are excellent because you're teaching a person, not a voice. So supporting the person is supremely important. So let's take the other side then. What advice would you give to young singers who are either considering transition or taking testosterone or not, and want to be in classical music? Do you have any words of wisdom for them?
Yes, definitely. I feel like a broken record, but be patient.
It's okay. That's a message that needs to get out. Okay.
Yeah, it's not going to happen overnight. None of the transition stuff happens overnight, and especially not the voice. So you just have to find a way to enjoy it, enjoy the journey, and enjoy playing with your voice, and enjoy figuring out what your voice likes to do or what it could like to do, and also take some time to mourn your previous voice. That was actually pretty important for me because, like, there's a lot of repertoire that I would have loved to do as a mezzo-soprano, and I didn't have any voice dysphoria, so I wanted to do that repertoire. I would have been very happy, and I'm not going to get to do it, and part of me is definitely sad about that. And you got to take the time to mourn that, and then move on and be happy about who you are now, and what your voice is now, more than anything else, because you can absolutely work towards doing certain repertoire or whatever. but you have to be happy about where you're at now.
Right.
That's the main message, I guess, is what I would like to give.
Great advice. I love it. Is there anything else you want to add that you wish I would have asked and didn't, or that you just want to say?
Your questions were great. I don't think I do. One other piece of advice I guess I would give is while someone's transitioning, find a choir to sing in. I mean, that can also obviously be tricky because of the gender stuff in choirs, but if you can find a supportive choir, it can give you a really safe place to figure out your vocal stuff.
That's excellent advice.
Yeah, and I know that that's helped me a lot. Whenever I've done chorus stuff, it's just less exposing, but
Right.
If you're already a classical musician, you have the skills to be in a choir, probably.
Right.
If that's the kind of environment you were trained in, then you have those skills, and it will bring you a lot of joy as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Yeah.
What's next for you? Are you got a big project coming up?
Yes, I do actually. In June, which is just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's like tomorrow. Nearly. Okay.
In June, June 10th, I have the premiere of The Bartered Bride. I'm doing a production for a summer festival that's a little bit north of Berlin, and I'm super excited. This is my first. I think really it's my first legit paid tenor role. So
Awesome.
yeah, really excited.
Congratulations. That's great.
Thank you. Actually, I also I've been thinking about this recently. I was thinking about putting out a Patreon as well, to do more activism and stuff. Just because I want to keep producing content, but I don't. I'm so busy,
Right.
and I have like day jobs and stuff that I have to do.
Right.
But I want to create more content. I want to write more articles. I want to do more videos. I want to do discussions and group discussions and stuff like that. So I'm also hoping to do more of that with some support. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
All right. That's great. Well, I'll look for that. All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Have a nice day.
You too. Bye-bye.